We're going to talk about decoy setup. This is the most common question that I get. Now, I love to bow hunt turkeys, and most people know me as a turkey guy and a bow hunter. And I'm going to help you through this tip learn how to properly set up your decoys. Now, I got what I call the 1 decoy setup, the 2 decoy setup, and the 3 decoy setup. And we're going to go through them one by one, and I'm going to help you understand how and why I set my decoys the way I do. Now let's talk about the 1 decoy setup. That's usually just 1 hen. Now you can set a jake out and it works good, but myself personally, I always like to set out the hen. Now, me being a bow hunter, it's very crucial how you set that decoy. So I always place the decoy 15 to 17 yards away, right into my perfect shooting window, and I always set the decoy quartering away from me a little bit. And why I do that is that allows that gobbler to strut around her. As he comes up behind her to lay his chest on her, it gives me a perfect quartering or perfect broadside shot. Now, these 2 hunts we're going to talk about, they both took place with 12 gauge. And they were both great hunts. Good friend Spike Daniels, we're hunting in Missouri. And this old wary Tom, it took him about 45 minutes to come in, but he finally did. He really didn't know if he wanted to strut or if he didn't want to strut, but he came right to the decoy. And your turkeys will act differently. Now, my hunt, I was in Montana. We were out there chasing the Merriam. And when this old gobbler, he topped the hill, I'd been cutting at him. He saw that single hen decoy. He made a beeline to her like a B-52 bomber. He didn't mess around, bumped her a couple times, boom, right on top. He was ready for business. Now we're going to talk about the 2 decoy setup. Now that can be 2 hens or it can be a jake and a hen. Now, I was hunting with my good friend Jeff Gerard in Kansas, and we decided we were going to set up in this green field, and we were going to put 2 hens out because we had been seeing a bunch of toms. Over the hill comes this lone gobbler, taking his time, a lot of calling. We finally convinced this turkey to come in, but as soon as he got into the spread, right behind him come these 4 big old tank toms running right through the wheat field. Now what that did was, those 2 hens gave the single bird the confidence to come in, but then when them other 4 gobblers saw that there was a gobbler down there with 2 hens, they weren't going to let him have no part of that. They come rotating right into the spread. That was a very exciting hunt. Now the next hunt, Caleb, my videographer, it was his turn to have the 12 gauge in his hand. We set up, we were in Colorado, we were hunting Merriam, we had a jake and we had a hen. Now what's really funny is how all the different turkeys act. This Merriam's, he come up, and when he saw the decoys, he strutted. He wanted to come in. He wanted to show his dominance, but he had probably been whipped 1 too many times, and he finally approached the spread. And as he approached, he gained confidence, and he knew that when he got there, he was going to whip that jake decoy, and let me tell you, he got right up to him and just pow, pow, pow. He kept pecking that decoy right on the head so many times, it was hilarious. Okay. We're going to talk about the 3 decoy setup, what we call the Hazel Creek love triangle, and that's a jake and 2 hens. Now how we set these up, and you can see by this hunt that me and my wife had in Oklahoma, I set the jake decoy right in our shooting lane. I put him right in the front, about 15 yards. Place 1 hen 3 to 5 steps off the right, another hen 3 to 5 steps off to the left, and both hens were past him probably about 18 to 20 yards. Now, this gives a great area for the turkeys to mill around, to strut in. And when these 2 old toms come around the corner and they saw that jake with those 2 hens, they made a beeline right to them. And what always happens is when you got a boss tom and a secondary tom or an insubordinate tom, that boss tom will start strutting around while the insubordinate tom comes right over to the jake and always will start pecking him on the head. And this old boy, he wore out my decoy. And while he was doing that, the other boss tom went over and started strutting around the hen. Now because of the proper setup, the distance between the jake and the hen, that allowed those gobblers to feel comfortable. Now, that is a big deal when you set your decoys out. The amount of distance between the decoys is what allows that gobbler to feel comfortable so that he can strut in and out of the decoys. Hey, try these decoy setup tips. I guarantee you They'll provide some good turkey action.